Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Double 18 podcast on this day, August 24th. I'm your host, Stephen Negishi. Thanks for joining us on this Sunday evening. My co-host to my right from Alpha Announcing, the associate editor, Ken Fang is with me once again. Ken, good evening and happy Sunday. How are you tonight?
Good, Stephen. Good to be on with you. Good to be here. We're on at about, we try to be on between like 6 and 7. Run a little bit late tonight, but glad that you could be with us and glad that you're finding us. Already seeing the numbers of people going up, so thank you for joining us. And I'll also provide a link to our YouTube page as well for you, so you can catch us on YouTube as well.
Thank you very much as always. And all right, let's start off with our show tonight. The very first topic on the day is that the 2025 NFL preseason is finally over. Thank goodness, is over. And, we're going to touch on our two teams, particularly your Browns and my Chicago Bears. And let's give, let's start off with your Cleveland Browns. Browns beat the Rams on a final field goal with about a few tick seconds left to finish. I believe your team finished undefeated, right?
Yeah, we were 3. Yeah, the 3-0 in the preseason, which I'll take.
Yeah,
that's definitely better than the alternative going 0-3. But
of course.
yeah,
but of course the conversation. Oh, I apologize there. Conversation, of course, surrounding the your Cleveland Browns has been the quarterback controversy. I know probably maybe people are making a big deal about, much ado about nothing that's involving Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, and the comments, of course, Dylan Gabriel made last week, which we did touch on our live stream last week. It looks as though, of course, Joe Flacco will start. It looks as though Dylan Gabriel will be the number 2 guy with Kenny Pickett still out. And I don't know how long he's going to be on this roster, moving forward. Right now, Shedeur Sanders is the number 3 quarterback. And I saw the game on NFL. I forgot the name of the channel. I was actually watching it on my cable. The Rams and the Browns. Yes. And I did have a chance to see when Shedeur Sanders came in, late in the game in the fourth quarter, pretty much the rest of the way. I have to say, he looked a little bit, unfortunately, didn't look all that great. I forgot. Yeah, it was on the NFL Network. I remember it was the Rams, Browns, Chris Rose, and Joe Thomas, I think, was doing it on local Channel 5, Cleveland Browns, network down there. And I think he held on to the ball a little bit too long. There was one play he was sacked, strip fumble, but they got bailed out with the Rams committing a illegal contact, 5-yard penalty, automatic first down. But overall, he was chased around, tried to extend the ball with this, extend the play with his feet. Could have hit a open receiver, but he threw it a little bit behind off his hands, and unfortunately, he did not really look good at all. Which is kind of understanding that, he is a, third string quarterback at this point. They even started Tyler Huntley, I think, on their final drive in that field goal where they kicked the field goal to win it. But now that Huntley is released, so it looks as though they're keeping 4 quarterbacks at the moment right now.
Yeah, you can see there from my screen in the Adam Schefter tweet.
Yes.
Tyler Huntley, as you mentioned, was released. They're going to go with 4 quarterbacks. Joe Flacco is going to start the season. Kenny Pickett, who's been injured for most of the preseason. Dylan Gabriel, who they drafted from Oregon. I think it was in the third round, Stephen, and then they got Shadur Sanders, of course, in the fourth round. As you can see there, I think they have to, because Kenny Pickett is hurt. Joe Flacco, he's an advanced age, so I don't know, and he was injured when he was with Indianapolis last season too. So
Right.
That Dylan Gabriel and Shadur Sanders are going to start sometime during the season. So and it's good to have that veteran presence as you have there with Joe Flacco and with Kenny Pickett. I will say this. Of course, we were all excited when Shadur Sanders in the very first preseason game performed extremely well, and he had to face a first team defense. However, one thing about NFL defenses and NFL teams is that if you have a great performance, they're going to find a way with videotape to pick apart that performance and make you look bad the next time around. And that's exactly what happened. Shadur Sanders was hurt and couldn't play in the second game, but he did play in the third game. And even though he was playing against probably the third or fourth defense, they were ready for him. And Shadur has to learn not to run backwards. He's got to throw the ball away. He can't hold the ball. And if he keeps running backwards, you're going to get 30-yard losses. That's going to happen. And he's got to learn that. And I think that he's got to find out the hard way that he just can't be doing that, and he can't do that consistently. In the Big 12, you're the quarterback is the fastest guy in the field a lot of times, so he can run around and get away with that, but not now. So he's got to learn that. I think it's a good move that Joe Flacco start the season. He'll probably start the first half of the season until the Browns are have one win or two wins, and then you're going to see Dylan Gabriel and then Shadur Sanders starting at that time. But it's going to be a hard lesson for both of them because they're rookies and they're gonna fail. We all know that rookies, unless you're Dan Marino, in his rookie year, that was an aberration. You don't really see that, Steven. So they're going to have some growing pains this season. The Browns are going to be not a very good football team. I acknowledge that. If they win 4 games this season, they'll be lucky. But I think at this point, eventually, probably this time next season, we'll be I don't think two of those quarterbacks will be gone. Maybe Dylan Gabriel and Kenny Pickett, or maybe Joe Flacco. Shadur Sanders will most likely stick around because the owner made that pick and made sure he made that pick for Shadur Sanders in the 5th round. So we'll see what happens.
Do you see Sanders starting at any point this year?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he's going to start. Like I said, Dylan Gabriel and Shadur Sanders will be starting late in the season. We know that. That's going to happen. Joe Flacco is going to start the first half of the season. Unfortunately, with that offensive line, he may be running around for his life. At 40 years old, I don't think he needs that. He's the father of several children. He may have to apply for hazard pay when he goes back to pass even. So, there's no doubt that both of those rookies. I think Kenny Pickett will also start a few games too. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Shadur or in late season when the Browns are totally out of the playoff picture and they want to see what they have. Dylan Gabriel and Shadur Sanders will start at least 2 games each.
Mm-hmm. Do you foresee Kevin Stefanski lasting this year?
It depends. Stefanski is he's handcuffed by his owner, the Haslams. He tried to do a couple of things last year, and it was obvious that it was Haslam's decision to force Stefanski to do things. I feel bad for Kevin because I think he's a good coach. I think that he's a proven coach. He's gotten the Browns to the playoffs before. So it's not that he isn't a good coach. It's just that, you're the victim of what you put on the field. And, he's been failed by his management. So I wouldn't be surprised if he be put as a scapegoat and be fired maybe even before the season is over, Steven. I wouldn't be surprised to see that because Jimmy Haslam is pretty much incompetent as an owner. And I foresee that especially if the Browns don't win more than 4 games this season, that his tenure as a Browns coach will be finished, maybe even before the season ends.
Yeah, that's true. Already playing in a very tough division, AFC North, which, my Chicago Bears playing the same tough division, which also happens to be in the North, the NFC North in this one. It's kind of hard for me to envision, Browns winning maybe max 5 wins at this point. They're going to have a tough run within their own division, first and foremost, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and Cincinnati as well. So, you definitely want to avoid going 0-6 against within your own division, first and
that
foremost.
can very well happen, Steven. That's how they are. I mean, they may pick up 1 win against Cincinnati. Baltimore is a very tough team. They have won against Baltimore before, but you have those 3 teams are you could project those 3 teams as playoff teams this season, Steven. That's how good they are. So, and there's one team that has to be a bottom feeder, and that's going to be the Browns. So, like I said, I don't foresee them winning more than 4 games this season, even though even as having an easier schedule as a last place team. But I don't foresee them winning more than 4 games, and I'm trying to be objective on that. I'm trying to, I'm not one of those pie in the sky Browns fans that says, oh, there's no doubt we're going to win more than 8 games. That's not possible. Not at least not at this point. And like I said, I'd be surprised if they win more than 4, especially with such a tough division. I mean, maybe they can surprise me, but at this point, I can't see it happening.
What else are you looking forward to, with the Cleveland Browns in this upcoming season so far? The defense looks to be pretty formidable. Sure. Mason Graham, drafted in 5th overall, looks to be pretty good, run stopper, and also hoping to provide more interior pass rush to go along with Myles Garrett. Carson Swessinger looks like a pretty good pick overall. 2nd-round pick out of UCLA. He really shot up the draft, last season, after being a nothing more than a special teamer in his first couple of years with UCLA, and now looks to be a very good, young up-and-coming linebacker. He's expected to, get a lot of playing time there as well. Anything else position-wise, player-wise, you're looking forward to this upcoming season?
Well, we know Myles Garrett. I mean, even after his travails of the offseason, said he was not coming back, demanding a trade, he signed a new contract. So there's a reason why he likes Cleveland. He likes being in the community. He's going to be anchoring that defense. And as long as he doesn't get hurt, that defense is going to be very good. It was last year. It was a pretty decent defense, and it was just the fact that the Browns offense just let them down time and time again with interceptions and fumbles and just a lot of 3 and outs. So I do foresee that this defense is going to be raising this team. It's going to be keeping this team in a lot of games. But unfortunately for the Browns, they could be losing a lot of one possession or games by less than 7 points. That's the way it is in this division. That's the way that they're in. The defense will keep them in games, Steven. But unless the offense comes around and helps out the defense by keeping them off the field, I really don't foresee that the defense can only do so much. You got to keep them off the field and get rest. And based on what this offense has, I don't foresee them doing that. So I have a feeling that unfortunately the defense will be tired. They'll keep them in a lot of games, but at the end, they'll be giving up late touchdowns and scores. And that's where the defeats will be coming in for the Browns. I just don't. They will probably lose a lot of 1 possession, or I'd say between 7 and 10 points, but where I see them losing games this season, and that's going to be tough for the Browns fans. But we have to do this. We have to undergo a lot of these growing pains to finally get some good offensive picks, and it's going to be it's going to be a long season. It's going to be a long season, I acknowledge that. I have NFL Sunday ticket. I'm going to have the Browns game on one TV, and I'll have the NFL Red Zone on the other. And like I said, like I'll be putting in social media, one of my body parts will be shutting down every time I watch the Browns. So that's the way it is.
Mm-hmm. All right. Moving on to my Chicago Bears. Last Sunday at this time, they were on Fox playing against the Buffalo Bills. And, the Bills obviously, played their 2 threes, with Joe Davis and Greg Olsen. Obviously getting their preseason work in. It was a pretty convincing win, 38-0. The opening drive was an amazing one. Even with the penalty, they just moved down the field and scored a touchdown. And from there, the route was on 38-0. It was really, really easy game to watch. And then on Friday, against the Pat Mahomes and the first team offense, the Bears defense were completely exposed. No pass rush whatsoever. They were completing passes left and right, because of the lack of pass rush. The secondary was getting beat left and right. They were down 20-10 at halftime at one point. And, thankfully, Caleb Williams and the first team offense, unfortunately, they look disjointed and discombobulated in the first 2 drives, fumble, sack. But they managed to, go down the field, and, Williams and Rome Odunze hooked up, 2 big completions in the final drive, which resulted in a touchdown, which finally put a cap on the, Williams's preseason game, which I'm glad it ended in the, in a positive way. Tyson Bagent came in at the same time when both Mahomes and the first team offense, their offense, I should say, left simultaneously in the second half as well. Bagent actually led them to, 3 consecutive scoring drives, including that final touchdown with about 7 seconds left in a furious comeback. And, on the context of things, it's great because, Bagent just signed a 2-year extension, which is a very affordable deal, 2-year, $10 million, which is an incredible bargain for a young man who was drafted, who was undrafted. His father was like a more known as a professional arm wrestling champion, multiple times, believe it or not. He actually started, I think, 1 or 2 games when Justin Fields was out back in his rookie season. I think he beat the Raiders at home. He has actually looked pretty good at preseason the last 2 seasons. And, he doesn't have a huge arm talent, but he can definitely move the ball. He's got some poise that, obviously Caleb Williams still has a tendency to hold on to the ball, which obviously, is not something that's going to be fixed in just one training camp, even with Ben Johnson as the head coach. But, I'm very impressed with him. He was very emotional in the press conference announcing his 2-year extension, because I think he came out and said, his family didn't have running water until he was in high school or something like that. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that was a really, really emotional. And I think, 2 years, $10 million. Certainly it's not like a generational wealth money, but, it's still a lot of, a decent money for, for a young man that was undrafted. And now he, gets a very good contract to be a backup to Caleb Williams. And I have a very good feeling, hopefully we don't have to come to any point where Bagent has to start a lot of games, because, when Williams is struggling or he's hurt or God forbid he gets benched because he's, he can't, stop turning turnovers or, cannot, stop getting sacks and so forth. But all in all, I think, the game against the Chiefs were a little bit of a reality check for, Bears fans, myself, and the Bears in general. Ben Johnson post-game conference was, didn't mince his words about the poor performance by his team, which, given how poorly, the Bears were under Matt Eberflus last year, I think it's a night and day. I think a lot of the players probably knew, it's the same players who probably openly complained about Matt Eberflus last year, but now they're getting a heavy dose of reality from just how stern Ben Johnson is about, not sugarcoating things. I'm sure the players were fully prepared and they all wanted it at this, but I think a lot of guys are now going to find out just the hard way about, when things get, tough in the regular season. The schedule looks pretty daunting. Bears have like the third hardest schedule on paper right now, record wise. So there are going to be ups and downs. The defense didn't have any pass rush, and that's a massive question mark, even with Dennis Allen as the defensive coordinator. He's going to have to come up with some really, creative blitzes, which is a far cry from Matt Eberflus's defense, where you just sit back and, gave up a chunk of yards to opponents last year, which unfortunately led to that disastrous Hail Mary that really sent the team to spiraling down the rest of the year. Of course, I'm talking about that Washington game last year, if you remember.
Oh, yeah.
The left tackle is still a bit of a question mark too. Braxton Jones suffered a knee injury late last year. He missed all of OTAs. He was thrusted into the preseason. He had some pretty bad plays where he whiffed a block. He couldn't hold up a block, putting pressure on Williams. So, that those two areas are a little bit of a question mark as well right now. It's going to be it's going to be up and down. Right now, as far as your question of where the Bears will finish in 2025, I think the floor right now would be 7 or 8 wins, with the ceiling hopefully about 10. If it all breaks, maybe 11. I know I'm probably being too optimistic, but like of course, I think we have to feel optimistic even with especially with the start of the season. I apologize for interrupting. Go ahead, Ken. There.
Yeah, you talked a little bit about Ben Johnson, and of course, you feel that. Are you more optimistic with him than? Of course, I'm Matt. I know your complaints. We talked about Matt Eberflus extensively last season, and what are you thinking? I mean, already, are you encouraged by the signs with Ben Johnson there, especially with the going for? He seemingly has taken the Detroit strategy of going forward on fourth down. And also being more aggressive on offense. Is that something you're more encouraged about after seeing what Matt Eberflus did with the offensive calling last season?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the track record when he took over the Lions play calling is very evident. 3 seasons pretty much. The Lions were in the playoffs, NFC championships 2 years ago. They had the best record last year before they unfortunately were run out of the building against the Washington Commanders in the divisional playoffs at home. I know the Lions fans were very upset that maybe, that was about the same time, Johnson was interviewing and then having to prepare for the game plan against the Washington, and accusing him of sabotaging the Lions in the playoffs because he wasn't concentrating on all of that stuff. But, I'm very encouraged because so far everything he has said and done has lived up to everything. Like I said earlier, he wasn't mincing words about, the Bears' first team offense and defense in the first half against Kansas City. I saw bits and pieces of it. It wasn't encouraging at all. I was, just, discouraged a little bit because, going up against first team Kansas City, you want to see how you are, going up against them, Pat Mahomes and their offense, toe to toe. And again, of course, it was preseason, but again, it was a reality check that, the Bears are not in the same level as the Chiefs just yet. And, this is a year in which, you have to get rid of all the bad habits that Caleb Williams had unfortunately developed under, Eberflus and offensive coordinator Shane Waldron. And, one training camp together, unfortunately, probably isn't enough to get everything out of the system. Again, the criticism of him holding the ball a little bit too long, that's valid. There was one play in which he held on to the ball and he was sacked. Thankfully, he was okay. A sack in the preseason and having, to suffer a serious injury would have been a significant disaster. But, Johnson gave Caleb at least, until the end of halftime to get it together. And thankfully, Williams put it together, the final 2 drives, field goal and then a touchdown. So offensively, I think there will be ups and downs, understandably. Offensive line has to hold up their end of the bargain. Williams himself also has to get rid of the ball quickly. He has to learn to, let the play come to him, just take a short dump off plays, 3-4 yards and keep the ball alive. Also throw the ball away when you don't have to throw it into double coverage and stuff like that. So those are the things that I'm looking forward to. Again, the defense, between now and the start of the season against Minnesota on Monday night, September 8th, there's still some time left. I'm very curious to see what they do with the pass rush, because I don't think they are in the market for neither Trey Hendrickson of the Bengals or Micah Parsons of the Cowboys. Speaking of Parsons, we'll get to Parsons in our next segment. But I'm thinking, I don't think the Bears are not in a position to give up a lot of draft capitals or even players to get neither of those players to improve their pass rush. Will it be great? Sure, but it depends on the cost too. I mean, those needed players are cheap. It's one thing you have to get those players, but at the same time, Ken, and I know both players are looking for a massive contract. Hendricks is 31 and he still wants to be paid. Micah Parsons is 25, 26 years old, and his relationship with the Cowboys has really, really frazzled and completely deteriorated at this point. But I don't know if the Bears are in any position to give up, significant amount of draft capitals like they did with, when they acquired Khalil Mack 7 years ago at this time of the year. It was exciting for me at that point. The Bears won a division title that year. But from that point on, everything just completely nosedived because we found that Mitchell Trubisky wasn't a good quarterback after that, and Matt Nagy wasn't a good coach either, unfortunately. So I am willing to let, Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams work together to make sure that, they have the quarterback position nailed. And then we'll figure out the pass rush as season goes on. Maybe they go after somebody in the trade deadline later in the year. Maybe they'll pick up a street free agent like Zadarius Smith, who's still out there, for cheap. Maybe he wants to go somewhere else where he can win a Super Bowl this year. But, money talks with these types of free agents. So we'll see what happens. But I am very encouraged. I just hope that, the Bears players will play harder and then play with more discipline under Matt Eberflus. And, I'm willing to live and die with the Bears again, just like I did last year. But hopefully, with Ben Johnson, I'm very encouraged that we have a professional coach for a change.
Right. Well, it's going to be interesting to see. We, as always, when the season starts, everybody starts 0-0. It's usually after the first 2 weeks, we'll see where we stand. Teams that are 0-2 always are threatened to, whether they can finish in the playoffs, and whether 2-0, are they just a red herring, or is it a situation where the teams are actually that good? We'll find out, especially after the first 2 weeks of the season, and that's coming up, of course. Week 1 coming up in the first week of September. The first game, of course, will be the Eagles and the Cowboys. That will start off this season on that'll be the season opener on NBC, and then there'll be a game in Brazil the following day. That'll be on YouTube. And then we have the first weeks of the season, and we're all looking forward to it, Steven. We all look forward to it. It's all coming up in a couple of weeks. Of course, we'll progress. We'll all preview that as we get closer to week 1 after Labor Day.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on to the next subject. And, we were talking about your Cleveland Browns, Ken, and I know this was something that, we were discussing a little bit before we went on air about Shedeur Sanders and his draft status. And we all know that he was considered a draft pick who was expected to be drafted high. And then, somehow he precariously dropped all the way to the 5th round, 144th overall, which sent draft expert Mel Kiper, who was continuously saying he was a top 3 pick. And then, he went berserk throughout the whole NFL draft weekend back in April. Well, the NFL legend Eric Dickerson came out and said that on a podcast in Los Angeles, stating that the NFL teams were trying to, make an example out of Shedeur and trying not to, told teams not to draft him. I got a podcast out here. I'm going to play a little bit of here. This was a Rogan and Rodney podcast that I think Eric Dickerson out of Los Angeles. Rogan, as in I believe, is the local sportscaster legend Fred Rogan. I'm going to play a clip here. Let me see what you think about this. This is the first time I'm also hearing about this.
And I'll tell you this much here: what I heard from someone that's in the NFL, that the NFL told other, don't draft him, do not draft him. We're gonna make an example out of him. And this came from a very good source, And he said that, I won't say who, somebody called the Cleveland Browns and said, don't do that. Draft him. Yep, draft him. Don't do that. Because they weren't going to draft him either. They weren't going to draft him. They were forced into drafting him because somebody made a call to them, said, and I say, when I say this is a NFL side source for sure, so this is not here. So look, one thing about it is, and I'll just say it, they don't like when guys have brands, especially black players, and that's mostly us with the brand, we kind of, some guys are flashy and all that kind of stuff. They don't like that. This kid, Fred, I don't think you knew this. He had already made $17 million from a card deal that he already signed. A card deal. He had $17 million already for that. Then he had another 14, I think, from a was it a shoe, Nike or some shoe deal. So he was good with money wise, but I know he wants to play in the National Football League for sure.
So how does he do that? I mean, Cleveland picked him. I find it fascinating, Eric. You're saying somebody even called the Browns and said, don't do that.
Yeah, somebody called the Browns and said.
So what was the objective? He doesn't get picked. He's an undrafted free agent.
That's exactly what's going to happen. They were going to have him, he was not going to get drafted, to basically show you this is what happens when you do this. I mean, look, Fred, the NFL got all kind of power. They do all kind of stuff. You know that, and I know it too. But no, they were not going to draft him. And like I said, when I said it came from a good source, it came from a very, very good source. They said they weren't going to draft him. I like it because when I saw it when he went to the second round, I said, oh, I said it out loud. They're not going to draft him. They're going to make an example out of him. I knew it.
Do you think
so the guy that they drafted, the quarterback they drafted ahead of him, he wasn't as good as Shedeur. He even said it. I mean, how do you draft a guy that you know that's not better than the guy that you drafted after? That don't even make sense.
Do you think Shedeur knew they wanted to make an example out of him?
I don't think he realized to the extent that the NFL would go to make an example out of him. No, I don't think he knew that. I don't think his dad knew the extent that they would go to make an example out of him. I mean.
All right, Ken, listen, you heard us. You heard about it. How do you feel about the whole story about Sanders, of course, dropping all the way to the 5th round, and then Eric Dickerson implying that the whole league, maybe the blackball that I, put a title here, caption, was a little bit strong, but they were trying to make an example out of him because of his, lifestyle, and then his father being Deion Sanders, of course. How do you really feel about this after hearing about this?
Eric Dickerson is a crackpot. Okay, let's put it that way. He said he heard from a source. I don't know. Eric Dickerson is not a journalist. Okay, he's just a former player.
Right. He was, of course, one time, I think, a sideline reporter with Monday Night Football back in
Yeah,
the
he was. I mean, he was
90s
also
or early 2000s or something like that. Late 90s.
yeah,
early,
he was on during the years with Al Michaels and Dan Fouts and Dennis Miller. I mean, I look. There's no doubt that he's a Hall of Famer. There's no doubt that Eric Dickerson did a lot of great things on the field with the Rams and the Colts. But as far as being a journalist is concerned and putting this out there, I really take this with a grain of salt. I think it was more about the NFL teams didn't like his attitude. I don't think they were trying to blackball him and I don't think there was a league directive. I really doubt that. I mean, yeah, was I really did I think that Shedeur Sanders was going to fall like he did? Of course not. I thought he was going to be at least a second rounder. But I don't think that this was a league-wide directive. I really don't. And Eric Dickerson putting that out there, he says he had an NFL source, and maybe someone did tell him that, but I don't think it's a highly placed, unless it came from someone in the league offices that told him this. I really doubt this happened. I really do. I'm very skeptical of it. Yes, I do feel that there are some certain ways that sometimes the NFL doesn't treat black players well enough. They don't respect them well enough. I don't think that there was a directive by the NFL to make an example of Shedeur Sanders. I mean, what was the point of doing that? What would be the point of preventing? I mean, yes, we know about what they did to Colin Kaepernick. We that's pretty much they blackballed Colin Kaepernick for making his stance, and of course that pretty much is I do believe that, but I don't think they were trying to do that with Shedeur Sanders. I'm very skeptical of what Eric Dickerson has to say about it. As soon as the words are coming out of his mouth, it was off camera. I put the full screen up, but I was doing a face palm. My hands were up to my head. I really doubt that what anything said about what that Eric Dickerson said had a modicum of truth.
I'm going to play a devil's advocate here. Let's say if it came straight from somebody else's mouth, Adam Schefter, Albert Breer, or somebody else, would you believe that a little bit?
Yes, I would. But I don't believe, Eric Dickerson hasn't had really major opinions in the last 20 years. And all of a sudden he comes out with this. I doubt it. I'm not very, I don't think that, and does he have connection in the league? I'm sure he still does. But I don't think that this is something that it may be someone from a disgruntled source who had an axe to grind with the NFL who put this out there to him. But I really doubt that the NFL tried to blackball Shedeur Sanders. I don't think so. I mean, I haven't really seen any I really haven't seen any major headlines of this to put this out there. And besides, Shedeur Sanders is in the league and he's probably going to have hopefully he'll have a long career. But I really don't think that he was blackballed. Do I think that NFL general managers feel that they were skeptical about his attitude and about some of his about his athleticism and how he could last in the league? Yes, I do. I do think that's part of it. But I don't think there was a league-wide directive to not draft him.
I'm very curious. If let's just say, for example, there were 32 teams trying to, of course, collude and try to make an example out of him, whatever it is, and somehow Cleveland Browns decided to break that pact and draft him for no other reasons other than maybe they decided he was worth the gamble. And I don't think that the league would say, hey, listen, Cleveland Browns, I know you need a quarterback, you need a star power of any kind. If you want to draft Shedeur, and if you can do us a favor and draft him, we owe you a lot. We owe you one. I think it's I don't think that's how it works. I don't think NFL has some sort of a direct mandatory for one specific team to do completely go up outside the grain, if you will. So I'm very curious to see if this is has any leg or maybe
I don't think it is. I don't think this. I think this story. Yeah.
there's something that truth will be revealed maybe in 10, 15 years from now. When Shedeur is either still in the league or out of the league, and whatnot. But it's interesting that something like this came out, and we'll see what happens. Maybe Dion has something to say about this, and I'm sure this is not something you want to be hearing about as the college football season is about to begin. All right, let's move on to the next subject. The Dallas Cowboys versus Micah Parsons standoff continues. This is a very interesting subject. This is about the same time when Netflix docuseries about, I believe it's titled "The Gambler," Jerry Jones and the Cowboys story. It's about the Cowboys in their heydays back in the late 80s to about mid 90s, when Jerry Jones basically put everything on the line, whatever assets he had to buy the Dallas Cowboys, and he gambled everything to make this team back into champions, and the behind the scenes relationship with him and Jimmy Johnson both played at Arkansas, in their peak and then deterioration, the players' contract negotiations, and the off the camera stories involving their star players, Emmitt Smith, Troy Aikman, Michael Irvin, etc., etc. I find it, it's interesting that simultaneously we're seeing about how the Cowboys operated and how they became a America's team again, winning 3 Super Bowl titles in 4 years, and then from that point on, and everything's been kind of downhill for the Cowboys, and we're witnessing somewhat of a the dysfunctionality between the Dallas Cowboys front office and Micah Parsons over the contract negotiations. And the whole thing, I think, stems from the fact that I think Jerry Jones and Parsons actually had what I think Jerry Jones considered to be like not a full-fledged handshake deal, but it was kind of like a word-of-mouth agreement.
That's how it worked.
Right. And Jerry Jones has a tendency to do that. I think I saw on Charles Robinson's Yahoo page about how he likes to circumvent agents and talk directly to the players and do their contract negotiations. And it's we're seeing that play out right now, because David Muguleta, which is one of the most powerful agent in the NFL circle right now, representing Micah Parsons, and Jones does not want to talk with Micah Parsons, and then just want to directly deal with Parsons, or just want to force Parsons to accept the the word of mouth stuff that they've agreed on back in March and stuff like that. So I'm going to ask you this, Ken. I know neither one of us, full disclosure, I don't think we've watched the Netflix docuseries just yet. But when you look at the Cowboys and the Micah Parsons standoff, and we all know about the story of the Cowboys' peak and their deterioration as Jones continued to enjoy being on a spotlight for all the wrong reasons, Ken. How do you see this one play out, with the season just probably less than 10 days away from the Cowboys right now?
Well, I do see that Parsons will. I do think he'll sign eventually. Jerry will throw enough money at him that he'll finally have to. It'll make them that offer he can't refuse. As you mentioned, Jerry doesn't like to deal with agents. He likes to talk with the players directly and get a handshake agreement. And that's how. If you look in the documentary, and I've seen some previews of it, but knowing his tendency and his history. The handshake agreement, that's how he bought the Dallas Cowboys, Stephen. He made a handshake agreement, and then they did all the paperwork afterward, and that's how he's done run the Cowboys ever since. That's how he signed Dak Prescott. That's how he signed all his players with handshake agreements. Also, sidestepping the agents. And here's where a situation where Micah Parsons' agent is trying to take over the negotiations. Jerry doesn't want to talk with him. And so that's where we have a standoff. So Micah Parsons has been seen He's been on the side of the field. He's been either lying on the bench or he's just been hanging around.
I did see that. Yeah, that was not a good look on him.
Yeah, but he doesn't want to play it. He doesn't want to play until he gets a contract or he gets traded. I don't see the Cowboys trading him, Steven, unless they get that offer they can't refuse, kind of like the Herschel Walker deal where actually Jimmy Johnson made to get all those draft picks. But unless they get that type of deal, Micah Parsons is not going to be going anywhere. And I have a feeling that Jimmy Johnson will find a way to get him. I know that Brian Schottenheimer, the coach, has said that he is pretty optimistic that Parsons will be on the roster when they open up the season on Thursday night against the Philadelphia Eagles in the season opening game. And I think that was a directive that came down from Jerry Jones. I don't think he would feel that confident unless Jerry Jones felt that he was confident he was going to sign Micah Parsons. So I do think there will be a deal. It's just the fact that, again, as you mentioned, Stephen, that he doesn't like dealing with Jerry Jones doesn't like to deal with agents, and he likes to do end runs around them and then make a deal. So I think eventually Jerry will throw enough money that Micah will listen and say, okay, he'll tell his agent, sign the deal. And, he'll probably get enough money. And of course, the Cowboys know how to circumvent the salary cap, and they'll find a way to get his money. And Micah Parsons will play the entire season. Now, whether the Cowboys can get over their playoff woes and get past the first round, we'll have to wait and see. But Jerry always likes to have a holy trinity. Whether it's Dak Prescott, whether it's a running back, like the old times when they had Ezekiel Elliott, even back when they were winning, they had the holy trinity of Troy Aikman and Emmitt Smith and Michael Irvin. They had the triplets. They call it the Holy Trinity. He likes that type of thing. He likes to have those three players that are signed. Tony Romo, Ezekiel Elliott. He also had the receivers back then too. So it's big for him, and he likes that, and he likes to keep his team always talked about in the national media. And he's probably loving the fact that even we're talking, this small podcast is talking about him. So it doesn't matter. He just loves to have them in the spotlight, whether it's, and I do plan on seeing, it's called America's Team, The Gambler and His Cowboys, about Jerry Jones. I'll be interested to watch that because it's so, I think it's like 8 parts have already been released.
Right.
He's always, wanting to keep him and his Jerry Taj Mahal in the spotlight, and they were in the running for the World Cup final at one time, which went eventually to MetLife Stadium. But he's one of those guys that likes to have people talking about his Cowboys, and when ESPN and even when Stephen A. Smith is ragging on the Cowboys, he loves it because for him, no publicity is bad publicity, even if Stephen A. Smith is ragging on his Cowboys and laughing at pictures of desolate Cowboys fans angry about another playoff failure. So, we'll see. I do think Micah Parsons will be signed. I do think that, it'll happen probably around, a Labor Day weekend when it's slow, when it'll be a news dump on next. This is what I predict. Next Sunday at this time, Stephen, we will be hearing some breaking news from Adam Schefter right in the middle of our show. This is what's going to happen. It's going to be in the middle of our show. Right in the middle of our show, there will be an alert that you and I will be talking about that Micah Parsons will be signed, and then he'll be playing that Thursday night for the Cowboys against the Philadelphia Eagles. It'll be dragged out, but you know what? Jerry Jones, he just loves that reality TV, and he loves his and it'll be happening on a Labor Day Sunday, which is basically very slow. And I think that's what's going to happen. He's going to find a way to sign Micah Parsons because that's the way he is.
Yeah, I think they'll eventually come to the middle and sign a deal. 5 years, maybe 210 million or whatnot. I think Jerry will drag this out as long as possible while the docuseries is on air. I think they might even include the the negotiation part as an added bonus or whatnot. But who knows? But yeah, it's going to be very interesting how this plays out. Right now, Jones not wanting to deal with the Asian is not a good look. It's not a good look right now. But I think eventually they'll come to terms, and they'll have to come to terms, because I don't think the Cowboys are going anywhere near, to be honest, already this year in their first year with Brian Schottenheimer. And Parsons is one of the stars that
They need
keep
him.
the Cowboys relevant. In all honesty, Dak Prescott is 32 years old, coming off a serious injury. I don't know if he's going to decline rapidly, but you do wonder, that at some point, whether he's going to start breaking down. And this is going to be an interesting test this year, where Prescott has to, stay upright, or, this is where, he's going to start suffering, more injuries, left and right, and, forces him to miss a couple of games here and there. The Cowboys, kind of like right now at this point, they're third behind the Philadelphia and Washington in the NFC East right now.
Right.
They're clearly ahead of the Giants, but if the Cowboys aren't, relevant, or if Prescott is, hurt himself all the time, and Parsons is, God forbid, gone to somewhere else and where he's thriving elsewhere, the Cowboys aren't as interesting or as relevant as, anybody would like to give them credit for. So we'll see what happens. Even with Micah Parsons signed, this is going to be an interesting year for Cowboys, because, not many people have Brian Schottenheimer as the head coach on their radar, much less anywhere else. This is the only job that the Cowboys could give him, because they were not probably interested in high-level head coaching candidates like Ben Johnson, because not only it would cost much, but because Jerry wouldn't be able to have any sort of wielding influence over on the personnel side, which Jerry always likes to do. So, this could either Cowboys have a strong year, or this could considerably crash and burn rapidly. So we'll see how close, if the Cowboys and the Parsons side can close their negotiations moving forward.
Right.
All right.
And I do think, Stephen, that Jerry will find a way. He always does. That's what happened with Dak Prescott last year. Remember that they seemingly went down to the wire, and he gave, all of a sudden, Dak Prescott signed this huge deal, which nobody thought he deserved.
Right.
You're going to something like that with Micah Parsons, and like I said, we'll find it. It'll happen next Sunday. We'll be doing this show. We'll be streaming live, and thanks to the 140 people who have joined us this evening, we really appreciate it. We'll be on next weekend too. So unless something happens, but I do think that's going to happen. That he'll get signed at the last moment, and Micah Parsons will be starting, and you'll see that introduction with him on Sunday Night Football. And Micah Parsons, such as Ball So Hard University during the introductions on the season opening game next on Thursday night.
Mm-hmm. All right, Ken, let's kind of end the show with two separate media information. First of all, North Carolina and Bill Belichick will have their docuseries on Hulu. Bill Belichick has been in the news this entire offseason for, I would say, pretty much on the wrong reasons, unfortunately, which kind of have tarnished his aura and the image. Because of his relationship with Jordan, what's her name, and so Jordan, what was it?
Jordan Hudson. I put the
Jordan Hudson. Okay, yeah. Pretty weird, how, of course, those two hooked up, and the power or the influence she has not only on him, but also reportedly also over on the North Carolina football program, it seems like as well, which was revealed by Pablo Torre, formerly of ESPN, of course. And this is going to be very interesting. What can we really expect from this series, in your opinion?
I don't know, Stephen. It's probably going to be, first of all, that this whole relationship between them is very weird. I don't know what it's all about. Look, it's a free country. He could do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
But the fact that she has so much power with the North Carolina football program is very strange to me. She is head of marketing for him. And of course, she's like a brand officer. So it's going to be interesting to see how this goes. Remember that the NFL films were supposed to have a Hard Knocks off season in regards to documentary that fell through. I think it was mostly because of Jordan Hudson. Now they're going to do this for Hulu. I don't know who's going to produce it, but I'm going to see. I'm going to check. I'm going to briefly go down and see if there's any. If this is going to be who's going to be doing it. It's going to be called Everwonder. That's the media company that's going to be producing it. But overall, I don't know what's going to be all about, Stephen. I don't know if it's going to be mostly football or if it's going to be talking about behind the scenes and whether Jordan Hudson is going to be in it a lot. So it's going to be weird. It's going to be, and maybe it's going to be on the up and up. Maybe it's going to be like the Hard Knocks type of thing where they show practice and, Bill Belichick at media days in the ACC and how he treats things. But, this pretty much cements the fact that he'll never get back in the NFL, Stephen. I know he wanted to do that. It pretty much cements that he'll never go back. And especially as long as Jordan Hudson's in the picture, I don't think any NFL team is going to touch him.
To me, it's kind of like a double-edged sword for Belichick and North Carolina program. You already mentioned Bill Belichick is already pretty much torpedoing himself out of the NFL, and I don't think NFL will ever, reach out to him. I think they're done, of course. Even before this, I think it's done age-wise because I think it would have been difficult for somebody like him to be brought back. I know there is an exception, of course, with Pete Carroll, who is about to turn 74 next month, and he just got back into the NFL with the Las Vegas Raiders. But I think Belichick was done already. He's the winningest coach in the NFL. There's no need to, prove anything else otherwise. But for a program like North Carolina, of course, certainly this is a groundbreaking. They're trying to brand themselves out. I think for programs like North Carolina in the SEC, which is a conference that's kind of in the perils right now, because a lot of schools could leave for SEC and Big Ten and so forth. The bigger conference, and they could become the next Pac-12 and disappear from this country. As soon as a year or two, but. For schools, this is the way of branding themselves and make money. I'm sure they got a pretty sweet deal out of Hulu and parent company, whoever they are, to produce this. Yes. Again, this is like the lengthy PR, much like the Cowboys, also with their Netflix series. I forgot to mention earlier, this is nothing more than like a soft PR for Cowboys with Netflix. This is the same with Hulu with North Carolina and Bill Belichick because of all the negativity that he and the school had to endure because of Jordan Hudson. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword, in my opinion. Schools have to, sell their program. They also have to kind of reveal and disclose behind the closed scene stuff for, an extra $1 million. Now, this is a very important, important time for colleges, I understand, because of the NILs. And we're also talking about private equity trying to get into, college sports. And we know, of course, that could be also another double-edged sword as well. But, maybe there could be a time where, the whole Hulu series could be deadpanned. And, I would have to say, hey, be careful what you wish for. For schools like North Carolina, just because you hired a high-profile coach who've never coached in college, and especially at his age, with the negative publicity already, this could be another PR nightmare depending on how the series unfolds. I'll probably have to take a close look, and maybe one of your writers from Awful Announcing will do some deep dive and do some previews and like a summary, of course, I should say, about the whole series as well.
Yeah,
and then finally, go ahead. I apologize.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on it, and I don't, it's difficult for me to keep track of all the docuseries that are out there, and I can't watch all of them, but I do want to see the Dallas Cowboys one, but in regards to this Hulu thing, I just may avoid this altogether. It's just a mess. I don't want to look at it.
I don't blame you.
I just have it just gives me a bad feeling, Steven. I just feel like probably if I watch it, I'll probably have to feel like I take a shower or something like every time. So, anyway, you were talking about, let's move on. ESPN and Fox have released their direct consumer streaming products this past week. ESPN, the direct consumer, of course, is well known because they signed agreements with the NFL Network, the WWE. They'll have a WWPLE coming up in September, earlier than they expected. Fox also quietly released theirs. By the way, ESPN's cost $29.95, $29.99 unless you have your cable or satellite provider has an agreement agreement so you can log in, so you don't have to pay for it. I know DirecTV and Fubo have it. Comcast and YouTube TV, which I have, does not have it. So there'll be some features on there which you won't be able to see. Fox quietly did theirs. It'll have all of Fox Sports and, of course, Fox News and all of other stuff that they have on there. Fox Nation, I believe, it's also there. So it's going to be $19.95 a month. Unfortunately, I have not been able to have access to either during the beta. Usually I used to be able to have access to it. I have not had any access to it, but from those I've talked to, the ESPN one looks very intuitive. And of course you can do a multi-view, so you can create your own four box screen that you have of anything you want to watch. Fox, I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. I may have to download that. I don't want to pay for it, but if Fox and their good friends at ESPN PR and Fox PR want to give Steven and I access to it, so we can maybe review it for next week. I'm just putting it out there. But anyway, it's going to be, YouTube TV is expected to have an agreement sometime. I think they have a contract coming up with ESPN at the end of this year, so I think they'll renegotiate that and have that as part of the access. So we'll see what happens. Again, $29.95 for ESPN to get everything of all their streaming networks. Fox, all the $19.95, a little bit cheaper, a little bit more reasonable. And I think their outlook, from what I understand, is a little bit simpler than what ESPN has. So again, I can only report. I can't really talk about what the features they have. But interesting, Steven, that again, more streaming services. To watch the NFL, especially for those people who don't like to subscribe to cable or have never subscribed to cable. This is an appeal to those people who are never subscribed to anything. So to watch the NFL, and of course they have bundled too. ESPN and Fox have agreed on a bundle, so I think it's $39.95 altogether for both of them. So again, that's a kind of big cost. But again, if you want to have access to the NFL, both ESPN and Fox, baseball with Fox with the World Series, ESPN's access to all the tennis Grand Slams except for the French Open. And of course, they have the NBA. They'll have all that stuff, and all the stuff that ABC that is streamed on ESPN and ABC will be on there too. So, if you find that something that you want to subscribe to, that's great. But also, if you want to subscribe to a Fubo or a streaming service like that and get it free from that aspect, maybe that's good for you too. But it's out there, and as someone who follows the sports media, it's interesting how these two came out the same day, as a matter of fact, on August 21st on Thursday.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I have some nice heartwarming story to close out our show. So
Sure.
College football began over the weekend, week 0, as people would like to say. The most notable game, of course, is the Iowa State against Kansas State in Dublin, Iowa. I'm sorry, excuse me, Dublin, Maryland. I apologize. I don't know what the hell I said there. Of course, but the one that involves us Asian Americans, of course, is the one in Hawaii. I think it was on CBS. Hawaii versus Stanford. Hawaii won it on the last second field goal, kicked by a Japanese kicker, Kansei Matsuzawa. Here we go. This is not from CBS. It's from Sicko's Committee, which is a very popular college football.
That's a highlight from CBS. I don't think you can play that. So, but anyway,
okay.
he did kick it in. I did see it go through. So, yeah, that was fantastic. And yeah, if you want to show his press conference, you can do that.
All right, here we go.
I'm kind of nervous right now, more than like when I kicked game-winning field goal. Like speaking English is tough, but yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the moment, and when we gave up the second touchdown to the Stanford, and I was like, oh, this is going to be my game. And I just prepared game tying field goal and also game winning field goal. I knew that was going to happen. So like, just focus on myself, that, like I said, and that's the thing only I can do. So control what I can control. That's everything I do on the field.
Good for him.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Stephen. I didn't realize that when Stanford won that he was of Japanese. He's
Hawaii won. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So when they beat
it's an interesting story. Yeah.
Yes, and when Stanford blew that lead, but anyway, Hawaii was fantastic. It was a fantastic game to watch. I had it on the background. I didn't have the sound up, but it was a fun game to watch. But I'm very happy for him. And he
went to JUCO in Ohio, believe it or not, to learn English, and now he's kicking field goal
for Division One and in the football championship subdivision. So kudos to him. Fantastic. That's a great story, and something that we are originally talking about Asians in sports, and we were going to call out bad behavior, but we also have to call out the great behavior. So this is wonderful. A great story, and something that we wish to see more of. Really, to be honest with you, representation is very important for us, and it's very great to see. My last word, of course, Lee Corso's last headgear pick on College Game Day is this Saturday.
Yeah.
If you saw, there was a nice documentary on Lee Corso by ESPN. The final part was fellow broadcasters like Mike Tirico and Maria Taylor and college football coaches coming on to say how much he meant to them and how much he's meant to the sport. And the last part was seeing Kirk Herbstreit.
Yeah.
Being so emotional. Great to watch. I recommend the documentary. It's going to be on all week. ESPN will probably show it. If you have the ESPN access online, I'm sure it'll be it's on the direct-to-consumer product as well. But Lee Corso has meant a lot to ESPN and college football. Of course, he's had health issues from his strokes. And I know people saying that he shouldn't be on ESPN anymore because of his slurred speech. But, it was his call to make. And he decided that he wanted to do one last headgear pick. And it's going to be this Saturday. When ESPN does its first show of the season premiere. It'll be very emotional. It'll be great to watch. And the fact is that, Stephen, Lee Corso has meant a lot. The fact is that I think he first started in 1991 or 1992, and he's been on constantly pretty much ever since. So And I think, to be honest with you, they should retire the headgear pick when he leaves the show next week. No one else can do it as good as he did. And one thing that he always did too is that he knew that College Game Day was entertainment, so that was why he would always dress up as the Irish or the Irish mascot, or he would be on with the Oregon Duck. And one of my favorites, Stephen, is when he shot off rifles when he was in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Water, he fire off guns, and everybody like Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit had to duck. Or if like in the Cotton Bowl when they had Texas and Oklahoma, he fired off a rifle. So he was very funny, and and also one time when he was firing off guns, he threw out the F-bomb by accident. But he's just very funny. But you laugh at Lee Corso, and you're laughing with him, not at him. He's a wonderful man, and he'll be missed. And the last headgear pick will be on College Game Day, and I think many of us will be watching it before the first game at noontime Eastern time next on this Saturday. And like I said, he'll be missed, and College Game Day won't be the same. He's the last original person that's on there, because Chris Fowler and Beano Cook, and I think it was just him. I think also Craig James. I think they were the original ones on College Game Day, and he's the last one of them. Of course, Chris Fowler is still, calling games, but Reese Davis, who has took over for Chris Fowler, and Kirk Herbstreit, who took over for Craig James. It's going to be interesting to watch to see them, how emotional they get on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. College football kicks off next week. Labor Day weekend. Obviously, the cars are very much loaded. Of course, the Texas and Ohio State, rematch of national championships in January this year. I'm really excited about Arch Manning finally taking the reins, and I think ESPN will be in LSU Clemson. That's the last game, which I think they College Game Day will be there. That's Lee Corso's last game. Last time he'll be putting on the the mascot headgear. So I'm definitely going to be tuning into that one. And one last thing, future guests I have lined up for the live stream for myself. Tomorrow, RJ Ochoa from Blogging the Cowboys. We're going to be talking about his perspective, of course, since he is more well known, has more knowledge, I should say, regarding the Dallas Cowboys and the Micah Parsons standoff. Does he see the contract negotiations finally taking place on both sides, coming to an agreement? What does he think of the Netflix series? He was actually in the Netflix series himself. Yes, he was featured a couple of segments in his live stream or YouTube channels, whatever. So I'm really excited about it. That's tomorrow, 3:00 Eastern to Central. Friday, 9/8 Central. I have my good friend Jacob Infante, who is the blogger and also writer with Windy City Gridiron and Pro Football Network, draft expert, to talk about the Bears and the upcoming college football seasons and the NFL draft prospects to keep an eye on. And then I also put it out there. I'm also currently working to bring back a guest we've had several years back, Adam Rank from the NFL Network, who I had a chance to interview when we were still doing our regular podcast, when we didn't have a live stream back then. I'm really excited about bringing in Mr. Adam Rank, and then work out the dates, probably sometimes in the first or second week of September right now, because he's very busy right now with the kids just back in school and everything. So,
sure.
I'll have more details on the appearance of Mr. Adam Rank, at his, try and work his available time and dates and stuff like that. So please keep an eye out on both of our X for the information moving forward. Ken, also, as always, sorry about that. Go ahead.
That's okay. Also, too, we mentioned Amy Trask last week, whose show CBS Sports Network, that other pregame show will be likely canceled. Like it probably is canceled for this upcoming season. She reached out to us. She said, "Thank you for the mentions, and we appreciate that." We hope to have her on our live stream if she's available on Sundays. Maybe not have her on every week because she is committed to What the Football on the Rich Eisen podcast network, which will likely be heard on the ESPN direct-to-consumer podcast. But if we can get her on a couple of times during the season on a Sunday, and like I said, she is welcome not to be on camera because she doesn't like to be on camera. But if she doesn't want to, that's perfectly fine. The invitation is open. So Amy, anytime you want to come on with us is perfectly fine. And if she wants to talk about that day's football games or talk about some moves that she's interested in, or even talk about Big Three basketball. This last season, the Big Three basketball just concluded today with their championship. So if anytime she wants to come on and speak about whatever she wants to discuss is perfectly fine with us. So Amy, if I know that you watch, thank you very much for your fandom, and anytime you want to come on is perfectly fine with us.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, we'll close out the another edition of the Double 18 Podcast live stream. Thank you to almost 150 people joining us to watch this on this very late Sunday night. As always, I'm very, very excited and very, very honored. Thankfully, the NFL and college football season is just around the corner. Major League Baseball is in their final month stretch, with the pennant races pretty much still up in the air right now with all the divisions. We'll see how much of a difference the September month makes moving forward. There could be still some teams on the upswing, maybe teams like Milwaukee that has been gangbusters, winning 14, 15 games last week. Now they have lost 6 of their last 9 games against the Cubs and the San Francisco Giants this week. I still don't know if the Cubs will catch the Brewers now that their head-to-head series is already over. But we'll see what happens, in the month of September moving forward. And we'll have plenty of guests and things to talk about as we move forward. Again, have a wonderful week. Thank you very much for joining this again, once again, and look forward to doing this again next Sunday night, same time. And have a great week, and we'll talk to you again.
Have a good week in sport, everybody, and everybody. We'll see you next Sunday during Labor Day weekend, and be safe in between. If you're having vacation between now and then, be safe. And if you're with the kids for one last time for the summer before they head back to school, may you all make sure that you have some peace and time to yourself, and take care of yourselves as well. And it's all important about your mental health. So thank you very much. We'll see you next week.